So what if I told you a company could lose over 1 billion lira, but still somehow report a massive financial gain? You heard me right. Today, we're going to dive into a Turkish industrial giant that's doing just that, all while making a multi-billion-dollar bet on its own future. Say hello to Petkim. Now, this is Turkey's one and only integrated petrochemical producer. That basically means they control the whole shebang, from raw materials all the way to finished products. They are a huge deal in Turkey's industrial scene. But right now, well, they're sailing right into a perfect storm, caught between a tough global market and a really challenging economy at home.
All right, so let's dig into just how this pressure is actually hitting the company's bottom line. The numbers here, they really tell a story.
So in the third quarter of 2023, Petkim's enormous factories were only running at 63% of what they could be doing. That's a huge flashing sign that global demand is weak. I mean, it's pretty simple. If people aren't buying, you just can't run your machines full blast.
And that slowdown, it leads directly to this number, a negative 7.5% net profit margin for the first 9 months of the year. Let me put that in simple terms. For every dollar of stuff they sold, they were actually losing 7.5 cents.
Ouch.
So, the end result of all that, a staggering net loss of over 1.2 billion Turkish lira, and that's in just 3 months. That is a rough quarter no matter how you slice it.
So here's the lay of the land. Petkim pretty much has a monopoly at home, supplying these huge industries like packaging and construction. But the real battle, that's against a flood of cheaper imports coming in from the Middle East and Asia. They're fighting in a market where there's just way too much product floating around and not a lot of profit to be made.
But, Petkim isn't just sitting there taking the hits. They've got a powerful secret weapon, a strategic advantage that's literally built right next door, and it's their fortress against this storm. And that advantage is its deep connection with the Star refinery. You can really think of it as a strategic fortress. It gives them a stable, cost-effective supply of their most important raw material, naphtha, which is what you need to make plastics. In a crazy volatile market, having that kind of stability is, well, it's priceless. And get this, the refinery isn't just a supplier, it's a moneymaker on its own. In that same really tough third quarter, the Star refinery actually kicked in 787 million Turkish lira to Petkim's finances. It's acting like a massive financial cushion. Okay, now we get to the most fascinating, kind of mind-bending part of this whole story. How a company can lose 1 billion lira on its operations, but at the same time report a massive financial gain. It sounds completely impossible, right? But it all comes down to a weird little quirk of accounting you only see in high inflation economies. So this is the big question. How on earth do you lose over 1 billion lira from your actual business, yet turn around and report a 4.5 billion lira gain? The answer is hiding in one single, really interesting accounting rule. And that rule is called IAS 29, or inflation accounting. Just think about it this way. $100 in your pocket 10 years ago could buy way more than $100 today, right? Well, this rule just adjusts all of a company's old numbers so they're stated in the value of today's money. It gives you a much more realistic picture, especially in a high-inflation country like Turkey.
So here's how it splits. The operational reality is that Petkim was losing money, plain and simple. But imagine you have 1,000 lira loan. If crazy inflation hits and that 1,000 lira is suddenly worth half of what it used to be, your debt just got a whole lot easier to pay back in real terms. The accounting rules see that shrinking debt and actually write it down on paper as a monetary gain. And that's exactly what's going on here.
And this is the absolute key thing to remember. That 4.5 billion lira gain, it's not cash. It's not in the bank. It is a paper gain. Sure, it makes the company's balance sheet look stronger because the real value of their debt went down, but it does absolutely nothing to fix the fundamental problem, that their factories aren't making a profit.
Okay, so they've got this refinery fortress playing defense and this really complex situation on their balance sheet. So what's the plan to actually go on offense and fix the real operational issues? Well, it's incredibly ambitious.
It's called the master plan, and the main idea is to get much, much bigger. The plan is to massively ramp up production so they can replace all those imports, go after the most profitable types of plastics, and double down on that integration with the refinery. The final go-ahead on this massive investment is coming in 2026. And just to give you an idea of the sheer scale we're talking about, just look at this one product, polypropylene, a super common plastic. They want to build a new factory that would take their capacity from 144,000 tons a year all the way to 550,000.
That's almost a four-fold increase from just one project.
Wow.
So why such a gigantic expansion? The goal is actually pretty simple and direct. They want to go from supplying just 9% of Turkey's petrochemical needs to becoming the dominant player in their own country. This is a direct shot at capturing a huge slice of that 91% of the market that Turkey is currently forced to import.
So let's just quickly recap the massive strategic gamble that Petkim is getting ready to take. The whole narrative is really clear when you lay it out. First, you've got the problem. A nasty global market is just crushing their profits. Second, you've got their defense, that star refinery fortress, providing stability and cash flow. And third, you have the plan, a huge, bold expansion to fight back and win on their home turf.
You know, financial analysts actually have a name for this. They say Petkim is in the bottom consolidation period. In other words, things are tough, but they're holding their ground and getting ready for the next move. The real story, the key moment everyone is watching for, is that master plan investment decision in 2026.
And that leaves us with the final multi-billion-dollar question. Caught between this global storm on one side and a bold, aggressive bet on its home market on the other, will Petkim's massive gamble to build a petrochemical fortress actually pay off?